So today we begin the project of blowing up this Lego Technic Le Mans car. So I've had it for a couple years now, and I've decided it's been together for way too long and I want to blow it up. When you spin the drive wheel, that power is transferred to the differential on the far right. So basic concept, drive wheel turns, power is converted in the differential, that turns the crankshaft, and that moves the pistons up top. So what I've done is haphazardly hot glued this dremel connector to the wheel connector. I'm going to screw in the dremel, run it at 12,000 RPM, work my way up to 24,000 RPM, and see how much spinning this thing can take before it goes bang. This is a good time to make sure safety goggles are on. So that was 12,000 RPMs, more than most road cars can do. And it held up fine. So I'm gonna crank it up now to 24,000, see how it handles that. And if it still doesn't bust, we're going to 30,000. Post-production Logan here. I didn't realize this the first time going over footage, but now that I'm going over it while I'm editing, I've noticed that right around here the pistons start to look like they're moving slowly, almost hovering in place. That's actually because the vertical movement of the pistons is nearly matching the frame rate of my camera. Okay, so for the couple seconds that it took that, it actually did pretty well. But what actually happened is it spun so fast, and I don't think I had a perfect seal between the bit and the lug, clearly, because the bit came off. And I can smell the hot glue heating up and melting again. So, gotta go at it again, and I think I'm gonna throw some WD-40 in there just so that I don't blow the pistons to dust. Alright, so it's day 2 of blowing up the LMP1 car. I've put some WD-40 in the pistons and the crankshaft. Now it's time to hook up the Dremel. I'm going to try one more run at 24,000 RPM. If it still doesn't bust, I'm going to 30,000. If it still doesn't bust, well, I'll figure out what else I can do to blow it up. Oh my God. So there were a couple points of failure. Number one, We didn't have a problem with melting or breaking the hot glue this time, but it shredded the axle connector to the lug. Like, if you can see down into that barrel, that's plastic that's just been sheared. On top of that, we have this, which is the head of a piston. More specifically, this piston. So I can't wait to look at the slow motion and watch it just eject out of the cylinder block. So we lost pistons 2 and 5. And also, the head cover blew off, which is probably just from vibration. But also it could mean the
crank
lost a bearing and knocked itself loose. I can't tell, but over here, piston number 4 is actually coming out past the block. It also de-beaded the rear tire. Like, it's totally off the rim. So I flipped the car over just to check it out, and there doesn't appear to be any damage or disconnection in the
crank.
So really, I don't know why that one cylinder is coming up further than the head. But when I took it out, this gear fell out. And I just kind of looking around trying to figure out where it came from. That's the connecting gear, almost sort of where a clutch would be in a real motor, that connects this black gear to the differential. There's that little tan-colored pin way back there that has worked its way out. And that is what was holding this gear in position. There's some plastic shards in the diff too, so I gotta figure out where that came from. I think I gotta take this thing apart and really examine it. But now, it's time to go look at the footage. Boom. I mean, immediately it just tears itself apart. Let's see if I can go frame by frame, get an idea of how many engine rotations we have before it blows. I can't even see. I don't think I have enough frame speed to really tell. It's 2, 3. Wow, yeah, 3 rotations. And it's in pieces. Wow. Look at the block. And just look at the way it wiggles back and forth like a snake almost. That is so cool. Just the weight not being distributed evenly with those 2 pistons gone. And it just totally shakes the thing apart. I mean, that's gotta be a flex of 2.5 millimeters. I mean, at least. Alright, now watching from the top-down angle, let's see what there is to see. Let's go frame by frame and check this out. That's 1 rotation, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so maybe more like 5-ish rotations before the pistons go. I thought 3. We'll say 4. We'll just go in the middle because I really can't tell. Again, the vibration just shakes everything loose once those 2 pistons are ejected. Wow, I'm watching back towards the right of the screen where you can see the tire. If you listen, you can actually hear it sounds like a tire burning out, and you can watch it come off the rim. There it is. And now I'm going to watch around the black gear, kind of right in the middle there, between the suspension. Let's see if we can watch it fall out. Wow, yep, just clawed its way right out of there. So back in the garage, I was looking closer at the shred in the inside of that gear. What it is the pin that's connected to this whole gray differential assembly. And the gear has outspun the pin and just totally blended it into that. Alright, so, in the process of taking apart the whole rear assembly, these are the two axles. This is the one that failed. This is the wheel that we didn't have power going to, which held up. So, right here is a lug. The wheel would attach to these three pins. Spins independently. If we go around to the back side, you can see there's these two slots in the side of this gray circle in the middle. That's where those two bars that stick out to the side go, so it locks in place like so. And the axle spins the wheel, has a few degrees of movement just for suspension. But as we can see with this one, if you look very closely, you can actually tell that it is kind of sheared or cut a little bit on those posts on the side. That wasn't too hard. Now I can get this brown pin out. Alright, so looking through this microscope lens that I happen to have, you can see down towards the collar at the left of the screen, there's these little flanges that kind of break away from the cross pattern in the axle. They all point in the same direction as you rotate the shaft, which leads me to believe that the gear was spinning faster than the axle was, or something along those lines, and that friction caused the empty cross pattern that is filled by the shaft on the gear to skip over it and do that damage. Putting the gear under the microscope now, you can see a little bit of fragmentation and just some broken off strands kind of hanging on there, which suggests my theory that the gear outspun the shaft is correct. I've now come to realize that on the side where there was a failure within the axle, this one that I showed you close up earlier, where the pin on the side came out, I tried rotating it, and actually the torque from my hand rotating it isn't making it to the diff. I really am curious what is going on in this gray piece that is causing that not to spin. At the point where I can pull this out and check out what happened in this gray piece, you can already see a little bit of what happened. It is yet another piece that just got shredded by the force. That is an undamaged piece. Now, taking those two pins out means I can get the differential assembly out. Here's that gear that had the plastic inside of it, kind of blended up in there. And just like I thought, that was the peg right in here that the gear totally just, well, outspun and threaded. Even more damage than I expected. This piece right here is the drive shaft. It connects to the crank and the engine block, and right about here is where that black gear that connects it to the diff would be. even more of that unidirectional wear. So there it is, the motor is officially out of the chassis. That appears to be the only damage done to this. I take that back, another piston just fell out, so apparently it was on the verge, and I bet if I had kept it running under power, that would have been shot out as well. But I think this is where I call it a night, bag these pieces up, and pick up with disassembly tomorrow.